Hello and welcome. It's time for your soul revival. Today's episode is sponsored by Client Care Concierge. Specializing in high-quality promotional items, Client Care Concierge helps you make a lasting impression with branded gifts and customized merchandise for your business or events. Visit clientcareconcierge.com/promos to explore their wide range of products. Again, that's clientcareconcierge.com/promos. Now let's get ready for your soul to recover, be restored, and made whole. This is your soul reset. We welcome you once, we welcome you twice, we welcome you 3 times to get your life. Welcome to Soul Reset, the sanctuary for your soul's revival. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the depths of the human experience and the nurturing of your soul. Each week, we'll dive into thought-provoking conversations with experts, storytellers, and everyday people who offer unique perspectives on topics ranging from personal growth and spirituality to resilience and transformation. I'm your host, Tameeka, and I'm excited to embark on this soul journey with you. Let's go. In today's episode, I am honored to welcome Camille Joy. Camille is a devoted wife and mother with a heart as vast as her roles: entrepreneur, podcaster, advocate, and a beacon of hope. She radiates joy, as is in her name, and utilizes her diverse platforms to uplift families navigating the unique challenges of raising children with special needs. Her podcast, Moments of Joy, stands tall as a premier platform uniting parents raising children with disabilities and providing them with a supportive community. Her mission is crystal clear: to deliver genuine support and absolute transparency to parents in the caregiving journey. Welcome, Camille.
It's Tameeka.
I'm so excited to have you. I'm so excited to have you today. Camille is a huge inspiration behind me starting this podcast. And so I'm so honored to have you here today.
I'm honored to be
here. We've read your bio, but we always want to know more because we nosy, right? So we have a Say More segment. Okay. And so in the Say More segment, we ask each guest 5 questions to learn more about you. You ready?
Yes. Okay.
The first question: if you could, this is going to be good because you're a corporate chef. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Crab legs. They're my favorite. No crab legs, please.
Okay. If your soul had a theme song, what would it be?
I'm a survivor. I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna
see, Camille. Yeah, now we're getting the exclusive debut of her solo career. All right, finish this sentence. My favorite place is.
My favorite place is my bed. It is. I bought a big king size bed, a new bed, and my favorite place is my bed because I'm a little sleep deprived, but I like to watch TV in the bed. I like to relax. I'm a relaxer. So
you're relaxed.
On a Saturday, the premier thing would be snacks and movies in my bed under my fuzzy cover.
Under your fuzzy cover. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. So you are crafting a day dedicated. You might have just answered this. You are crafting a day dedicated to nurturing your soul. What are you doing? Where would you be? And who would you be with? They can be living or dead.
So funny. I literally do this every Monday. I call them Mental Health Mondays. And so I do things that like deposit joy all day long. So it's small things. Like I wake up and I drink loose leaf tea. Like I brought this nice tea that I pipe, not in the tea bag, the loose leaf. So and then I make breakfast. So then I would make a breakfast with bacon, egg, and cheese and toast with jelly. And then I would watch my morning shows. I like to watch Sherry and the Jennifer Hudson show,
Mm-hmm.
and just relax and tap into like how are you feeling today. Breathe deeply, walk by the water. Just a day to like relax, pray, like hear from the Lord, and make sure I'm doing okay. Because
Mm.
it was a time I never did that, and I was like on the edge of like I'm slapping everybody in this house.
That's not where we want you to be. No, we don't want you to be there.
and and so I'm always making sure I'm okay because I pour out a lot.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Last question. The mantra that I live by is.
The mantras that I live by is so many, especially with these kids. But I feel like what comes to mind is Jeremiah 29:11. God knows the plans he has for us, and it is a plan to prosper us and not to harm us, a plan to give us a future and a hope. So there I can just rest and put my trust in the Lord concerning me. I tell my children the same thing. My son's like, can I get a tattoo? My oldest son, his first tattoo was that one.
Aw.
That's how they try to get you. My youngest, like, can I get a tattoo? He's 17. He said, I'm going to get a Bible scripture.
That was a good one.
That's our family scripture.
That was a good one. That's a good way to get a tattoo. He was smart. So, just to give some context to our conversation today, I want you to kind of share your story, your family story, your moments of joy story of how you started. And we're going to be talking today about the soul of special needs families. And so Camille is just the person. She is the person to talk to about this. So share with us your story, Camille, of Moments of Joy.
Yes. So Moments of Joy, it was first birth just out of an idea. I had an idea just to talk and share. Really, we had just had Mason in 2000. He was born in 2017. 2018, I was working as an executive chef, and I had an idea. I'm going to start a podcast. It really wasn't anything to do with um, Mason yet. It was for Christian women. I'd share my testimony and, just helping. And so it was birthed there, but Mason was born with congenital heart disease. So when I was about 5 months old, when he was about 5 months in my belly, 20 weeks or 24 weeks, we got our ultrasound, and the doctor came into the room and told us that he would be born with several heart defects, and presented us with, do you want to continue to have him or not? And of course we did, but his heart is irregular. So there are several heart parts that, we have a tricuspid valve, which is 3 parts of our heart valve. He has 2. He has a bicuspid valve. He was born with a pinch, they call it a coarctation in his aortic valve. So although he had a surgery at 3 days old or 5 days old to open that up, it's something that they'll have to continue to watch. He has narrowing down in it's called mitral stenosis. So he has a narrow area of his heart with a leaky, and it's leaky sometimes. So he had to be watched. He still is watched every 3 months, but he had 3 heart surgeries, and one was open heart at 18 months. So I feel like that was the introduction to having a child with special needs, more so a health condition. We were very obsessive of like, don't come in our home, take your shoes off, wash your hands, because while he was little, he could, even the common cold could be deadly for him.
Yeah.
So very obsessive. But then around he wasn't in daycare at all. He stayed home. My husband was an entrepreneur, so when I went to work during the day, he was with the baby. When I came home, he started working, and so that worked out for his first year. In about 18 months, we decided to send him to daycare.
Mm.
The daycare provider that said, Mason, he's a little behind developmentally. Would you be open to getting him birth to 3 services? And that's
Mm.
just like early intervention for any child. You don't need a diagnosis. If your child is a little behind, they could have people come and work with them at your home or at your school, and anyone could receive that. So I was automatically defensive.
Mm.
Like, no, he's fine, because in my mind, I was like, I'm not putting him through another thing. He literally just had heart surgery
Yeah.
month, and we put him in daycare. So I said, can you please work with him and come back to us in 3 months? And if nothing changed, I'll let him in. So she came back in 3 months, nothing had changed. And like, he wasn't eating, he wasn't talking, he wasn't um playing with kids, just the normal things they do in daycare that age.
Mm-hmm.
He more so wanted to play by himself and, was still a little clingy. So I said yes. I let him get services. And after a few months, they asked us to get him evaluated for autism. And
Mm.
although my husband, his twin brother has a son with autism, and his sister has a daughter with autism, because autism tends to be genetic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even if families don't know who an autistic person is in their line, or somebody wasn't diagnosed, that it just means they weren't diagnosed. Because Black and brown people, just like I was in denial, some people stay in denial forever, and then their child becomes accustomed, and they may grow up and learn how to fit in or not. But some children go undiagnosed, especially millennials. There's a lot of adults now being diagnosed. They're like, wait a minute, my kid is just like me. And so he got diagnosed at a little before 2, and then we moved to Texas. And that is where everything shifted. We were no longer around family that could help us
Mm.
babysit or be a community, or a help or compassion or support for us, because we were hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
And so that is where Moments of Joy kind of really was birthed, because I was going through so much of trying to understand what this was. Mason started having really bad meltdowns, which for children who are autistic that experience meltdowns, they can look like a tantrum, but it's not. It's like sensory overload. It could be
Mm.
you having the fan on, or you having the TV on, or sometimes he would even be overwhelmed if me and my husband were having a conversation in front of him, like too much talking.
Mm-hmm.
He would just flip out. But it's like any ignite of it being ignited could last for hours. And
Ah.
it's like uncontrollable, unconsolable crying. And it really took a mental toll. At the same time, he wasn't sleeping. He would go like 4 or 5 days of like going to bed at 8, but then he'd be up at 11 for the whole night,
Wow.
all night, and up all day and not sleepy. And by like the 4th day, I remember just being so exhausted, just crying, and I couldn't even pray. I was just like, Jesus, and crying. Now, I also want to add that when I received his diagnosis, I am a Christian and I am an intercessor. So I was like, okay, we're going to fast. We're going
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna bind this thing up, and he's gonna be delivered from that autism. And so I kept that mentality for about a year. And so one day, just during this exhaustion and during that time, I was praying, and mid prayer, the Holy Spirit said, would you be praying this away if he was diagnosed with Down syndrome? And I sat up on the bed and I stopped praying, and I
Oh.
answered God back and I said, no. And he said, you don't even see who I gave you. And from that moment on, I stopped trying to rebuke it. I understood what it was. I
Mm.
understood that it wasn't a curse or a demon. And I changed the way that I prayed for him. I began to accept the diagnosis. I began to, teach my family that this is what I was changing, that thought, that mind pattern.
Yeah.
It really, I remember telling my pastor at the time, Mason had been diagnosed with autism, and he said, don't claim that.
Mm.
And so that only fueled that. And that's what we do sometimes as Black church people. But
It's ignorant.
better. We just don't know. And so it wasn't something, it wasn't. So with that, I always have a special love for children with Down syndrome because they helped me to accept my own child.
Yeah.
And then, so Clubhouse came about. We started talking on Clubhouse and having support groups. And then I pivoted and changed what the podcast was about. And so I remember saying to my husband, I feel like the Lord is calling me to always talk about autism. It wasn't something I wanted to talk about at all. And he said, I think you're right. And I did. I changed everything to talking about special needs parents. And I say special needs because Mason has two different needs.
Yeah.
And what I learned, I just spoke about Down syndrome. What I learned from support groups is that it doesn't matter the diagnosis, that journey and the struggle of understanding and how heavy it can be. We all relate, whether your child has cerebral palsy, whether they're blind, deaf. We have to navigate through family, judgment, people outside, ignorance, trying to find the resources, not knowing what's available to you, and other physical things. If your child has a physical disability, going back and forth to doctor's appointments, going to therapy appointments, a lot, and it can take a mental toll on you.
Yeah.
So it just developed into this passion. As more and more parents would share, it developed into a mission, just really wanting to help, because right now we really want to just bridge the gap between the diagnosis and finding the resources, because I found so much that was available, but I found it through another parent. No provider said, did you know this is available? Not one.
Really?
So they don't know themselves. They don't know. They don't know what's available themselves. When I bring Mason to the doctor, even now, she's like, did you find any other resource available? And because she tells parents what I tell her.
Wow.
They don't know. Yeah. And so strollers, car seats, you could get a disability parking tag for your child. You can have a caregiver for your child covered by insurance. You can have beds, safety beds, and all kinds of things. There's so much available, grants available. If you're having financial problems, you can put your child on SSI and receive the help you need if you're low income. And there's so much help available for parents. It just became a mission. We also dived into doing a documentary and a docuseries just to show the families, because we talk about autism awareness and now acceptance, and we think people would know, but if I didn't have a child with autism, I wouldn't have known the depth of it. Even though my husband's twin brother had a son with autism, it was only a word to me. It was a face to me, but I didn't know that. Okay, he and his sister, so they're completely different. Skylar is his name. He's on the honor roll. He gets straight A's. He always did. He's in normal, typical classrooms. Like him and my nephew were in the same class. He was like getting C's and D's at one point. Skylar was getting straight A's as an autistic, very smart. And then his other sibling's daughter, Aaliyah, who is just like Mason, had struggled with language, and she's in special education. And, you could have very, very smart children and young adults who go on to go to college and are abnormally smart. And you could have children who are 28 and they're like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And so, and that all in between, that's why they call it a spectrum, which is a circle and all these colors. And all right, you could show up anywhere versus like linear, of like high and low. That's what we were told, in the back in the day, but it's more of, okay, they have sensory issues. They may have difference in the way that they process language. I learned about the way Mason processes language as a JustLit language processor. And that means he takes in language in pieces instead of with words. like how
Oh.
you're typically taught, like how to read a cat, bat, fat. He
Mm-hmm.
That's how he can take in a whole song and know the song word for word, but he can't say I have to use the bathroom.
That's interesting. And it looks like it took a lot of you educating yourself,
Yeah,
basically, versus
a lot.
people having something to offer to you.
Mm.
Even in that, like as a person, as a woman, there are certain needs that you have as a woman. There's certain needs that you have as a wife. There's certain needs that you have as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
But I think when you are a special needs parent, those needs go so much deeper. And I don't think that people, like you said, had you not had this experience yourself, you
Mhm.
wouldn't have known how deep this really goes.
Right.
And so um, I think that the care of your soul and you caring for yourself as well as caring for your family and your husband and things like that, that goes so much deeper. And I've seen your post about Mason sometimes having meltdowns and how it took an emotional toll on you to the point that you just want to have a meltdown yourself
Mhm.
afterwards. And I want you to tell us about your journey through that and how you learned to like soothe yourself during those moments.
Yeah, it was really difficult. Example, last night my son graduated from college with his master's, my oldest, and we had a caregiver here for Mason. She did a no call, no show last night. So Mason did. I didn't plan on bringing him with us because there's no way I knew that he could go into an auditorium and handle all those people. It would send him to sensory overload. So at
Mm.
the last minute, because my husband also was out of town working, I had to bring Mason. So he had a really, really bad meltdown because, as people's names are being called, they're screaming. So he was
Oh.
so concerned, so scared. Like, why is everybody screaming? And I had to take him outside, and he cried for like uncontrollably bad for like a half hour. And I stood there and I took deep breaths and I was like, you are not going to cry out here. You are going to sit here. You're going to get through this. And I just let him calm down. We went inside, and my other sons were with me. And I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to scream when Quentin's name gets called.
Mm.
And then I just said, you know what? We're going to have to scream because we can't let Quentin not have anybody calling his name and cheering for him when he graduates. And they called his name, and we stood up and screamed. And after that, I just had to. Mason took his book bag and he was like, "Let's go right now!" And he was
Right.
crying again. But those are moments where you have to try to navigate as a parent. The
Mm-hmm.
meltdowns are so bad, but I started going to therapy.
Mm.
Yep, I started going to therapy because I had real bad anxiety. So while I was during this process, I forgot to say that my husband one day looked at me because I was very stressed going to work. I was still an executive chef here, stressed going to work and handling that environment and navigating all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hot mess at work. And coming home, like he would have to be the one to go to the appointments and bring Mason to his early childhood intervention. I was like, how did it go? And he wouldn't be able to tell me details. Frustrated. He finally looked at me and said, you don't have to go back to work. I can hold us down. But he told me
Oh.
once, and I was like, all right, well, I'm
That only took once. Yeah.
yep. So I then took on the role of handling all of his therapy and what we needed for
Oh.
him. And so one day he came home and I was just laying flat on the floor on my stomach. And he was like, what happened? I said, Mason was like crying for hours. But by the time he's done and I'm consoling him, now I've got full blown anxiety. And I had
Yeah.
never had anxiety as a child or a young adult at all. So I was like, I have to go to therapy because I don't know. Maybe I need medicine. That's what
What
I
does
was
that
feeling
anxiety feel like for you?
just a lot of pressure on my heart, my chest.
Mm.
It almost felt like I was probably having a heart attack, I would say, but I knew I wasn't. I'm just really a lot of heaviness on my chest, headaches, um just like feeling like the walls were closing in,
Oh wow.
sweating, um just a lot of heaviness.
Mm.
So like if you could think of a day where you had a lot of heaviness. And then, so with the heaviness, it's like a physical nervousness, like
Mm-hmm.
how you are nervous and you have like butterflies in your stomach, like all that in one.
Wow.
How it would feel, and I would lay on the floor. But that was like grounding for me, to breathe deep, lay on the floor. And so when I went to therapy, she actually told me, you have PTSD.
Wow.
Mhm. And guess what? It didn't come from being a special needs parent. It's now coming to a head. It is your trauma, because years before, I had lost custody of my children to their dad in
Mm-hmm.
the custody battle. So they lived outside my home for 9 years before
Mm-hmm.
they came back into my home. And so I was dealing with now all of that trauma coming to a head.
Wow.
Yep. So I had to do a soul reset.
Yeah.
Had to, so all of what I was feeling was coming to a head, because she helped me dive into, like, when's the last time you were a stay-at-home mom? What and then at the same time Mason had his diagnosis, the Lord called us to move to Texas. 5 months after we moved here, that's when I regained custody of my children.
Mm. A lot
Yes.
of changes happening at one time.
And
Wow.
so I had to realize that they were also triggering me, because they reminded me of their dad.
Wow.
They looked like him. If we had some words, they were huffing and puffing like him. So I had to deal with my stuff so that I could be
Wow.
a effective mom, a wife. I mean, come on. And then I'm married. So I mean, anybody married, you got
Yeah.
you sorting through learning still how to be a wife, because I don't know if the learning ever ends. But
Right.
yeah.
Wow. You're dealing with all the things that come with being a special needs parent, but also dealing with your own trauma and your own things that kind of came to a head at one time and just
Yeah, because I was a traffic victim. So
mm,
I was trafficked when I was 17 years old, and I left when I was 21. And so in the
wow.
midst of that, I had 3 kids by him. And so now today, still I'm walking my children through their healing. Just, now that they're getting older, we're able to compare stories and say, this is what happened, and well, this happened during that time. And now they understand more, because they're like, they lived through it.
Wow, wow, wow. And it's so funny that you mentioned them because that was actually my next question
Mhm,
because I always pay close attention to the siblings of special
mhm.
needs children.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of special needs parents really struggle to find that balance between taking care of the child with special needs, but also tending to the other children, giving them the time and energy that they need. So, what have you found to be most helpful for your other children as you are helping out Mason? And, most of your time probably goes there, but what have you found to be helpful in making sure that they have what they need emotionally and that they are okay?
One of the things I think, well, it's a blessing for me, is I have a big age gap with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So Mason is 6, and then the next youngest is 17. So
Ah,
there's nobody close to his age at all. And then I have 18, and then I have 20 and 22. So they're
wow.
they're able to understand more. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the same tactics and things that we do could apply, in making sure that this is a family thing. One
Mm,
thing, when he was first diagnosed, it was hard for all of us. Um, it was, if he had a meltdown in public, I remember being with my 20-year-old. He was 16 at the time, and he had a meltdown, and my son was like, "Bruh," like he was fighting through being embarrassed and like
yeah.
wanting to help, and me saying, "Come on, help me." It was hard for him to understand. And then my youngest before Mason, him having to learn that was nothing we could do about the crying. I had asked him if he never wanted to have friends over because of Mason,
Mhm.
because I noticed, like, he never asking his friends come over.
Mhm.
And that's unusual, because I always wanted a friend over, or I always wanted to go to a friend's house. So I had to make him comfortable in that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, so we do things without Mason so that
Mm.
everything's not always about him. So we'll get a babysitter for a day and we'll have a family day without him. Also, doing things with the children individually, making sure they get parts of you individually
Yeah.
and having conversations and always tapping in. Because we're on social media too, I always tap into how they all feel about it. My oldest is no longer in my house. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like social media either. So it helps that he's not in our house
Mm-hmm.
for him. My youngest, he loves it. He's like, people come up to me in school and say,
Make
I'm
me viral.
saying, he's like, because the girls are talking to me. So he loved it. But we try to just make sure that, and also when I went to therapy, they went to therapy too. So we all had
Oh,
to navigate our trauma.
that's
We
so
did all
good.
kinds of therapy. We did individual therapy. Me and my husband did marriage therapy. We all were, and this was during the pandemic anyway, where we started. So
Mm-hmm.
I think half of the whole world was like, wait a minute.
Right. And you
Yeah.
just mentioned about you guys being out and your son sometimes being embarrassed. And so for those of us on the outside looking in, we may sometimes see a child having a meltdown or stimming with their voice, right? And so I've seen a lot of different reactions with that. I've also heard people say a
Yeah.
lot of hurtful things, thinking that they're being helpful, but they're not being
Hmm.
helpful at all.
Hmm.
How does that impact you? How does that impact your family? How does that impact your son?
Oh man, it impacts the parents so tremendously because when you keep hearing it over and over and over again, it makes you so defensive.
Mm.
Last night, I said to my son, I said, I'm learning. My 20-year-old, he was sitting next to me and really trying to help me with Mason navigate last night. And I said, I had to learn in that moment not to care what anyone was doing because we got to a point where we just let Mason stand up and jump up and down and cry, like,
Mhm.
and pace back and forth because that was helping him. That was helping us and it was helping him get through
So yeah.
because the pockets of parents going, screaming, he was so concerned but he had to get through it because we were not leaving. So I learned, I am learning to zone them out and not care who's looking and
Mm.
stay in our world. And I said that to my son. He said, yeah, me too. I'm learning, mom. I did that with you in that moment. So we're learning that. And it's something that you carry so much and it makes the parents so much more defensive. And even if they don't say embarrassed, there's a level of hurt, I'll say,
Mm.
just by a stare because you already know. I remember seeing children having tantrums in the store and saying things like, "Oh, that wouldn't be my child," or
Mhm.
I was never mean enough to actually say anything to a parent, but now I would hope that people would understand that it could be something more.
Yeah.
To When we were in the dentist the other day for my 17-year-old, there were two autistic kids in there, and I knew they were autistic because they were jumping around and humming the same way Mason would.
Mhm.
So I looked at the mom and I smiled and I said, is he autistic? And she said, yes. I said, I have an autistic son too. He's 7. And she asked me what school he went to. And I just wanted to, and he was jumping up and down and making his noise stemming and,
Mhm.
and his dad was like, shh. And I said, no, he's okay. He's
Yes.
okay. Yep. And
Making them feel comfortable.
and even
Mhm.
people who don't have children with special needs, something that simple, even if you didn't ask, is he on the spectrum because you're unsure, but
Mhm.
saying, he's okay, or saying, do you need any help? Are you okay? To the parent, like it could just go such a long way.
Is it proper to ask?
Yes, it's proper
Okay.
to ask, is he on the spectrum?
Yes.
If you think
Okay.
it's not harmful to ask if you want to know. I wouldn't be hurt or embarrassed if anyone asked.
Mm.
Because then what's going to come behind that? You're not going to
Yeah.
just say, oh, okay. You're going to say, wow, and follow behind it with something nice or
Yeah. Something more sensitive.
supportive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Wow. And so prior to now, Mason was previously nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
And most recently, you've been posting videos of him talking. He wants some bacon.
Yep, yep.
I can only imagine what that does for you. But
Mm-hmm.
what is the faith that you've held on to
Mm-hmm.
get you to this point? And this is in no means saying that the journey is over, but
Right,
like it took a lot just to get to this point, because he's 7 at this point and you've been waiting 7 years to
right.
hear him talk. So what is the faith that you've held on to, and what has kept your soul at peace during this process?
So clinically, Mason is still considered nonverbal, even though
Mm-hmm.
he says the words. He is verbal, but
Very much so.
he has the words, but he doesn't have conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
that those moments of him speaking, it just brings so much joy. But there is a moment of deep accepting that I had, acceptance
Mm-hmm.
that even if it's like, yes, I believe God for this, but even if it doesn't turn the way I desire it to, we'll figure
Mm-hmm.
out other ways. I learned a term, and it was called ableist. And that is something that adult autistics always use and say. And so in support groups, I learned that it is taking on the notion that a child that speaks is better than a child that doesn't.
Mm.
Spoken language is better than language on an AAC device or language through sign language. And so once I learned that, I realized that okay, I don't want to be an ableist, and so I'm gonna
Yeah.
face in every way, and so whatever happens, I'm accepting. Whatever, whichever way, this develops for him, I'm accepting. This does not mean I don't have faith. This does not mean I'm not praying and still anointing him and still calling his speech forth. But I am accepting whatever the Lord does in whichever way he does it. He is saying, like, he knows different colors, like he will be like periwinkle and indigo and different things, and so his mind is working differently.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to limit him, but this has nothing to do with the speech. But the other day, I cried to my mom, and I was triggered because Mason is 6, and we went into the store, and a little girl was having a 6th birthday party and like this soap making store I like to go in. And she came up to me and she was like, "It's my birthday and I'm having a birthday party today." And well, it's not really my birthday. My birthday was the other day, but today's my party. And she's just blah 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 nah, right? But he's standing next to me and I'm holding a full-on grown adult conversation with this little girl. Mason's standing next to me with his straw, and and,
Mm-hmm.
and so I felt nothing in the moment, and that was such a cute moment. And I went on, and then the next day, my friend came over with her 4-year-old, and he's very talkative and very smart. And so I laid in the bed, and between the two of those experiences, I realized what I was dealing with. Because when I'm not around any other small children, I don't have anything to compare it to. So I didn't get to really see Mason where he is. That he is still like a 2-year old, that he is still like a 1.5-year old. And so
Mm-hmm.
I laid in my bed and tears started coming down my face, but it wasn't a tear of sadness, it was a tear of prayer. So I began to pray that God, I spoke over my health, and God, I closed my eyes and I need you to bless me with long life.
Mm-hmm.
I have to see my child through. And I just continued to weep
Yeah.
because if this is what our path is, and I'm going to be caring for my child until he's 50 and 60. And I'm saying this because, Tameeka, that's a reality.
It is a reality.
And I could hope and I could wish, but I don't know.
Right.
And it makes him no different and no less if he doesn't is not able to go to college and he's not
Mm-hmm.
high function, as they would say. My mom
Mm-hmm.
has a friend, and he's 20, and her son is 27 years old, and he's still a baby. And when he has a meltdown now, he punches holes in the wall.
Oh
And
my goodness.
she's in her 60s, and I was praying for her when I was praying for myself, because she's
Mm,
having to see her son through. And what will happen if she doesn't wake up in the morning and she has to care for him? And so I'm beginning to have conversations with people as I advocate about adult care. And some parents never prepare their children for them to be gone, and they don't bring their children to adult daycare centers, and then one day they're gone.
yeah.
Child struggles so much that adult doesn't understand why they have to go to this place, because we didn't prepare them. So
Mm,
I just prayed, God, I pray that you would touch our health. And I said, God, I have to see my child through. I have to see my child through. I need to see him through life. And that was a prayer that you don't think about, because I have four typical kids.
mm-hmm.
I know they'll be fine even if the Lord took me tomorrow. I know that Mason would be fine if he took me tomorrow.
Wow.
And I need to have long life so I could see him through.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the ins and out of his little ways and his little patterns. If his day's interrupted, we're gonna be up all night long. You know, so yeah, I think that is the heart of a special needs parent, and they have to carry another level of worry. And those parents who have children that are not really, they have a lot of support needs, they tend to stay inside.
Yep.
And the awareness that I push is really for them. Those parents, children, they don't talk. Maybe they have cerebral palsy. And I also do it because I want the body of Christ and the church to begin to create room, because they're not in church, Tameeka.
Yeah.
They're home, because nobody's creating space for them to be able to bring their children. Ain't nobody in wheelchairs. They're not coming in, because y'all so quick to want to cast it out and cast it down without understanding. Some of them are okay where they are.
Yeah.
Some of them have come to acceptance that they'll never walk again. And they're okay. And
Yeah.
they believe that they're already walking in healing. They believe that God has made them this way, and they're
Mhm.
okay. So how dare you? That's ableist. How dare you want them to be different?
I was listening to a girl the other day. I think she has multiple sclerosis because she
Hmm.
walks on the walker,
Hmm.
and they try to make a show of her when she goes to
Hmm.
church, and God is going to make you walk. And she said, well, how did I get in here?
Yeah.
She walked in on her crutches, and to her, that's healing.
Yeah. Yep.
To be able to do that is more than enough for her, because there
Yep.
was a time she couldn't even do that. So to try to make
Mhm.
a mock, it's not necessarily trying to make a mockery. It's just like just trying to show
Right.
you have some power. But some people are
Mhm.
very okay with
They're
where they
okay.
are, with where
They
they
are
are.
okay.
And I
Yeah.
just want to rewind back to what you were talking about, because the other day, also I heard a special needs mom refer to her child as my forever baby, for
Yeah.
the exact reason that you just said,
Wow.
because you never know. And so for some parents, like you said, that is a reality. So
Mhm.
what type of encouragement would you give to them about nourishing themselves and nourishing their souls as they're going through this process?
Yeah, I would say don't forget about yourself, because we pour and we pour, and special needs parents are extra protective.
Mm-hmm.
So, on top of pouring and taking care of your child, nobody can be trusted with your child. And that's a real fear, because there's so much molestation and harm and abuse that
Oh,
flows through African American families. So, then we have isolation that comes along, because we can't bring our child to be taken care of by anyone. They
mm-hmm.
might not understand. It could be life threatening, where the police may be called and they don't understand autism. So your child or your young adult could end up losing their life. But I
Right.
would say, find pockets of, even if your child is going to school and you could take a day off to pour back into yourself, you could take an hour off, you could take a half hour, just do it consistently because your soul needs it, because we live in exhaustion sometimes.
Mm.
It's our regular. We live in that, and so it's a necessity for you to take care of yourself, and it's not selfish. But you have to take care of your mental health. You have to take care of your soul because that's connected to your physical health. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And even along those lines as well, as you were talking about in the beginning, also finding the resources that you need, right? That will help bring some relief to you, that you don't have to, maybe you're carrying around your child, or maybe there's a wheelchair available or some type of
Yeah.
transportation available. I know when you did the Moments of Joy Fest, you had pulled out the resource of how to help the parents transport their children through the airports and things like that. And just finding the different resources that can also help bring some relief to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And so I really want to quickly talk about the Moments of Joy Fest, because you
Yeah.
have put together a conference specifically for special needs families to come together. And so just as we close out today, I just want you to tell us about the Moments of Joy Fest.
Yes, the Moments of Joy Fest is an event that is so dear to my heart, and we do this to celebrate and honor families who have children with special needs. So it's a day of workshops. We have a panel discussion and a keynote message. And this year we threw in 3 hours of fun time for the kids. So we have
Oh.
like a room that has a raceway that was donated, and somewhat like a, not a bouncy house but something like it,
Mm-hmm.
and different entertainment for the children during that lunch hour that is specifically for them, but a time where they're able to meet and connect with other parents and make friends and just be poured into in an environment sitting next to someone that totally gets it. And so although it's a lot of work on my end, and every year I'm like, I am not doing this again. I really feel like God this year, I said, I don't know if I'm going to do this next year because I wanted to renew my vows next year. And then I said, I can't keep doing this every year, God, because we need volunteers. And then the Lord said, if you don't do it, who will?
Absolutely.
So I know that it's a mission that I will have to continue on, and then I'll just believe Him for the finances to move people from volunteering to paying and whatever we have to
Mhm.
do to continue on for years.
Absolutely. And I was able to attend last year as
Yes.
a volunteer,
Yeah.
and I do not have, as of right now, a child that is on the spectrum or have special needs, but I was deeply moved and deeply touched by the speakers and by the different parents. I think the thing that got me most was all of the parents felt like they were in a room where somebody finally understood. Like
Mhm.
it was, they finally understood. If there was a kid stimming in the corner, nobody looked at them any kind of way. If the kid had a meltdown, one of the little kids got up and jumped on the table. Nobody thought anything
Mhm.
was strange about
Oh,
that. Like
yeah.
everybody, it was such a community and a welcoming community for the parents. And so if you are able to get, and you don't even have to be a special needs parent,
Mhm.
please just
Yeah.
get there, because it'll help you. If you're not a special needs parent, it'll help you understand how to support your friends who may be special needs parents, and also special needs children in your life. But
Mhm.
especially if you are a special needs family. I believe last year there was one of the people that I met. He was a brother. He wasn't even a parent. He was a brother of
Yeah.
someone with special needs. And so if you are a part of a special needs family, Moments of Joy Fest is somewhere that you want to be. And give me the dates again, just so that we can make sure that they know, and also the website.
July 13th in Houston, Texas.
And what's the website?
mojfest.com.
mojfest.com. Camille, you are
Tameeka, thank you.
absolutely amazing. And I
Thank
want
you,
to thank
my
you so
friend.
much from the bottom of my heart for you sharing with us today. And as we come to a close, I just want you to tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yes.
And you also offer different services. I don't know if you want to talk about those, but
Yes.
just let them know where they could find you.
You could find me on Instagram and TikTok under Moments of Joy Podcast, on Facebook under Camille Joy. And we also teach people how to start a podcast. And you
Yes.
could sign up for classes on that at mojpodcast.com. I don't really promote that much, but I still do it. And so we have a nonprofit. We haven't finished their website yet, but it's called the Awesomely Different Foundation, and that is who is hosting the Moments of Joy Fest, and we'll be releasing grants and workshops and other things in the future. And so I look forward to connecting with you all.
And so much more. She think that's it, but it's so much more. It's so much more in store for you. I know it is. I know it is. And as you begin or continue to just go on this journey, I just believe that God is going to open amazing doors for you that you couldn't have even imagined. So again, thank you for joining us today. And for those of you who are listening, thank you for joining Soul Reset Podcast. Until next time, may your heart find peace, your spirit find strength, and your soul find a sanctuary. Take care. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us reach more people on their soul journey. Remember, business prosperity, life prosperity, any prosperity hinges on the prosperity of your soul. If you're looking to unlock your true potential, align with your purpose, and find clarity in your path, consider soul coaching. Visit Tameeka.online for your complimentary soul discovery call or to learn more about how soul coaching can support your journey. That's Tameeka, Tameeka.online. Until next time, this has been your Soul Reset.